Welcome to PTE Updates. For more videos, subscribe our channel.
So my talk is on water and future climate change. We're currently causing irreversible damage to our planet by dumping CO2 and other greenhouse gases to the atmosphere and warming the planet in the process. As a consequence, we're changing the water cycle at an alarming rate. Changing the water cycle and warming will result in fundamental changes in the circulation of the atmosphere. In the coming decades, storm tracks will move poleward. Typhoons and hurricanes will become more intense. In places where it rains now, it will rain even more, while places which are dry will become even drier. Desertification will become a very important problem in the middle of continents. The Asian monsoon will bring more rain to India and Bangladesh. Luckily for us, we have the oceans. If we didn't have the oceans, the planet would warm much, much faster than it presently does. This is because it takes a lot of energy to change the temperature of water by even a tiny bit. Additionally, million microscopic plants living in the oceans absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and store it in the ocean. Without the oceans, atmospheric CO2 levels would be much higher, and the current climate problem would be much more severe than it already is. So after all, it is good to have water around. Thank you, water. Thank you, oceans.
So hopefully this won't count into my time. I have a modified title to make it a little more positive. It's The Life, Death, and Rebirth of the Mississippi Delta. Life. 8,000 years ago, the global rate of sea level rise slowed as ice sheets disappeared. The modern Mississippi Delta was born as the river pumped sediment into the ocean faster than the rate of sea level rise. For thousands of years, a delicate balance was maintained. Land sank up to 1 centimeter a year as mud compacted, while sea level rose slowly. These were balanced by deposition of sand and mud during floods. Death. Dams in the upper portion of the river now strangle the delta's sediment supply. Artificial levees prevent flooding and the replenishment of sediment, and global climate change is causing accelerated sea level rise. Meanwhile, the delta just keeps sinking. Rebirth. There's simply not enough sediment to stop the erosion and drowning of most of Louisiana's coastal wetlands. But maybe we can save one very important part, the city of New Orleans. Sinking of the city cannot be stopped. However, there's a possible plan to divert the meager supply of Mississippi sediment to grow a new mini-river delta in the bays around the city. This would help to protect New Orleans from hurricanes and storm surges. Many people would ask, shouldn't we just abandon New Orleans? My response to that is, have you been there lately? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dennis. There are 5 interrelated reasons why you should share power. First, to prevent war, to bring it to an end, and to prevent the recurrence of civil war. Secondly, because you comprise more than one nation or people inside your state. Thirdly, because the possibility of simple majority rule gives rise to tyranny of the majority, the dominant nationality or ethnicity. Fourthly, you should share power because power-sharing democracy is more effective and fairer than its opposite, winner-takes-all democracy. In power-sharing democracy, human rights, minority rights, women's rights are better protected, and into the bargain, your economy is managed better. Lastly, you should share power because of the alternatives. The alternatives are war, genocide, ethnic expulsion, coercive assimilation, coercive integration, tyranny of the majority, tyranny of the minority, and bloody and divisive partitions. Next questions.
Achievement is not normal. People differ from one another on innumerable dimensions. Many traits follow a bell-shaped or normal distribution. Height, for instance. There are outliers, yes, but even the very tallest man in the world, at 8 foot 5 inches, is only 1/3 taller than the average man. However, the distributions of objectively measured human accomplishments are typically extremely skewed, with a very long right-hand tail. In so-called log normal distributions, most of us are clumped together at the very low end of the scale, with a small number of outliers besting average performance by a factor of 2, 10, or even 30-fold. These include number of scholarly publications, number of paintings hung in major art museums, and the frequency with which an author's work is checked out of the library. The log normal distribution of accomplishment is a clue to its mechanics. If achievement requires many different capacities, each of which is normally distributed, then only a rare few individuals will have it all, so to speak. It is not enough to be very, very talented, or very, very self-disciplined, or very, very determined. To be an outlier in human accomplishment, one must be, at the very least, all of these. Thank you.
Many Americans, often, though not always, on the right, like to think of the United States as exceptional. America, they tell us, is a land uniquely devoted to individual liberty, unlike the socialist dystopias of Europe. Whatever one makes of this idea, there is at least one way in which America is truly exceptional. We have treated health care not as a right, but as a luxury to be enjoyed only by those who work hard enough to earn it. This changed just over a year ago with the passage of the Affordable Care Act, which aims to provide insurance to the more than 40 million Americans without it. If this act can survive numerous legal challenges, then America will have ceased to be exceptional, joining other nations in treating health care as a birthright. If the act is undermined, however, then the United States will persist in its exceptional disregard of the common good, providing inferior care to fewer citizens at an exorbitant moral and economic cost. That's the kind of exceptionalism that no country should be proud of.